Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jim Shalik. It's March 16th, 2020, 2:33. We're conducting our monthly meeting. I'm here at the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Present at the Board of Elections is myself, Kevin Karpinski, Allison McLaughlin, Margaret Jurgensen, Lisa Marino, Barbara Sanders from the League of Women Voters, and Kira Bumbre, our budget specialist. I'm going to call attendance, and after I call attendance of our board, guests, please announce who you are and that you're on the line. And this meeting is going to be transcribed, so when anybody speaks today, we need you to say your name and then make your statement. Okay. Nahid Kozame.
Yes.
Okay. David Naiman.
Present.
Diane Dillon.
Present.
Elise Barnes.
Present.
Jackie Phillips.
Present.
And Alan Banoff.
Here.
Okay, so we have a quorum. All right, Lisa wants me to have the members of the public that are on the line just mention their name, so we have the attendance.
Dolly
This is
Kildee,
Dolly
are you
Kildee.
still on?
Yes, I am.
All right, Dolly Kildee, you're here on?
Yes.
Margaret Jurgensen, Barbara Saunders, you're here.
Right. Nancy Farrar?
Nancy Farrar,
I'm here. I am here.
There were some other members of the public that are on the line. Could you identify yourself?
Bernadette Garrett.
Okay.
Jeremy.
Kevin what? Kevin?
Jeremy Hirsch.
What?
Is Jerry Garson?
Was there a Kevin on the line? Yeah, guess we need you to identify yourselves for our transcript. Was there a Kevin?
Nathan Young.
Nathan Young.
Okay.
Nathan Young.
Okay, thanks, Nathan.
And Karen Burry from League of Women Voters.
Okay, Karen. Anyone else that hasn't identified themselves? Okay, we just had a gentleman walk in. What is your name, sir?
Mark Hoffman.
Mark Hoffman. Okay. So I think everybody's checked in. Remember again that you have to announce your name, members, before you make a statement. Okay, we have a quorum. As you know, things are quite fluid. The governor had a press conference today and was asked when he would talk about the election, and he said he was planning on doing it tomorrow. So we're still uncertain as to the direction the governor is going to go with this, and hopefully we'll hear that tomorrow. Regarding the agenda, because we had so many motions on last month's minutes, I suggest we table the approval of the February 24th meeting minutes till next month, when we're all here and present.
I move. I second. No, he's moved. Diane seconds.
All right, well, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay, and we're going to go to disclosure of campaign contributions. Has anybody made a contribution since the last meeting to a candidate that will be subject to our canvass?
No, he's no.
Well, if I don't hear anything,
No.
we're going
We're going to have to do a roll call.
to roll call.
Jackie, no.
Okay.
David, no.
Elise, no.
Alan Bennett, no.
Jim Shalik, no. Okay, do we have any, Lisa, do we have any public comments?
No, we do not.
Okay. Okay. Okay, Margaret, we're going to turn to you regarding your status, your report, and any last-minute updates that we should know about regarding how we're going to proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Margaret Jurgensen, Election Director. Regarding personnel, the program manager position for voter services closed Thursday. We've not had any time to review the applicants. Once we have an opportunity to take a breath, I anticipate that this week we will be reviewing that. Additionally, unless she changed her mind, Leslie Woods, who is our supervisor for training and recruiting, has announced her retirement effective March 31st of this month. Positions continue to be filled in voter services. And I think we're pretty close to being filled in filling those positions. We have designated, in light of the coronavirus situation, additional staff have been designated essential personnel so that we can move forward with whatever type of election that comes forward. We are in the process of developing guidelines for telework, and that is a two-step process that requires whoever teleworks must sign a security agreement with with the county, and then also adhere to the security requirements with the state so that they have access to the MD voters registration database so that they can work from home. This has not been an option in the past, and it is an option now in light of the situation.
May I ask a question about that?
Yes?
This is David. Do we have a sense as to? I assume that there are some jobs in for our office that are kind of telework possible, and others that are not. And I'm wondering if an analysis has been made as to what kinds of things can be done from a remote location.
We are still just trying to get the equipment necessary at this point to see what's available for anyone to do telework. So at this time, no, that type of analysis has not occurred. Additionally, depending on what type of election we are going to conduct will also depend on who is capable of doing telework.
Okay.
So the first
Thank you.
person that
That makes
can
sense.
happen, that might be able to do telework, would be our budget analyst. And then after that, we're looking at voter services for anything that is not paper. And then after we look past voter services, which includes absentee, things start going downhill, because if we are having an actual election day, early voting election, then the preparation of supplies, that can't leave the building. Obviously preparing all the voting units, that can't happen outside of the building. Training, that will still have to occur, and that can't be done, though we are reviewing the possibility of enhancing the videos that we do utilize for election judge training, which we'll get into once we talk about the preparations.
Okay. Okay, Margaret.
All right, moving on to the next topic, budget. Kara Bumbray. Kara, would you please step forward?
Does it sound like I'm on trial?
Sorry.
Okay, everyone has a copy of their budget spreadsheet. I think, was it sent out, hopefully? We've spent about $3.6 million of our 8.2, so we spent about 44%, and about 54% of that is in personnel. And did we want to move on briefly and announce our recommended FY21 budget from the county executive is $8.3 million. $8,375,091 is exactly what was recommended by the county executive. Our wish list items, or I shouldn't say wish list, our competition items or funding things outside of our funding parameter were not granted. Do we want to go into more detail about that now, or?
The big items, the level of funding that we need for election judges for a presidential general election was not, does not meet the needs of a general election. The county also decided not to fund the state billing at the level that they have advised us they're going to bill us. At this, and I have a tentative April 22nd date before the county council go committee to discuss our budget, but that has not been confirmed. They originally had it scheduled for the same day as the last day of early voting, which I informed them was not really possible. But April 22nd is a possible date. So when I get more definitive answer from our budget analyst from the council, I will share that information. Kira will be providing you the information that's at this table that we just got a couple of hours ago. She'll send that to you electronically, and then we'll prepare a spreadsheet for you.
And just most importantly, our structural deficit was not addressed in this recommended budget, which is my biggest concern as we go forward. So if you have any questions, feel
I'm
free
sorry,
to
I
ask.
can't hear you, Kira.
Our structural deficit was not addressed in the FY21 budget, and that's something that we're working through this year that will be continued and especially shown next year with the presidential primary, and that was not addressed, and that's one of my biggest concerns. But if you have any questions, please let me know.
Now, what did you all say about the judges? They are not funding an increase. Was it in salary or number of judges or both?
There's no salary increase at all. And the number of election judges that we need was not funded at the levels that are needed.
So, do we have numbers as to what we recommended and what was granted?
Yes, we do. Not right this very
Could I get
second.
those?
We can get those to you.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I think that would be very helpful. I think all of us have probably experienced the need for more judges. Or at least I hear that a lot when we go around election day. So if we're going to have a traditional election day in the fall, we certainly want to make that point.
Yeah, this is Nahid. I agree with David, and that's a major.
Okay.
Jackie, and I agree with that too.
So this is Kira, and one of the most important things when you talk about more judges is actually the seasonal temp money that goes to train the judges, and that goes into our structural deficit. So we don't just have to pay the judges themselves, we have to pay the workers that train them, and that goes into a huge personnel deficit again. So even if we can pay the stipends for the judges, all the money that goes into training them, that's what we have to concentrate on. And if we don't get any more money in personnel, how do we have prepared, seasoned election judges?
No argument here. We have to train the judges in order to have them work for us.
Thanks, Kira.
We just need to know what it is. I'm sorry, it's David. We need to know what it is we're asking for, and how much it'll cost in order to train and hire the number of judges that you think we need.
Yeah, this is Jim. We've also have Janet Ross and Chris Zizit that have joined the meeting. Go ahead, Margaret.
Yes. Okay, voter services, I sent you the links for the February monthly statistics. And as for absentee applications, as of this morning, absentee request for delivery by U.S. Postal Service was 5,708. On web delivery is 4,736. And we had our first 2 individuals walk in today to vote in person. Our nursing home program, because of the situation, was canceled, and all the residents that signed up and their facilities are not allowing us in their facilities. Will be using an absentee ballot process. And Bobby and Michelle are working through the details of how we go about that. Okay?
Do we have any, this is David, do we have any idea how those numbers for absentees compare to the past, or whether they picked up in the last few weeks? I assume they did.
Let's see. Not really. Let's see. On Thursday night, when I wrote this document, we had 5,321 U.S. postal delivery, and this morning we had 5,708. I believe that we had about 12,000 absentees in 2016 primary. We're not really seeing a huge uptick, but we anticipate as things go forward that number is going to go up dramatically.
Margaret, should I read the
Thank you.
the registration? This is Jim.
No.
Voter registration?
No.
Okay.
All right, so anyway, we will, if you wish, maybe I can send you the absentee requests every other day so that you can see what the level of participation is by that method. Obviously, the web delivery is a more difficult absentee process, and so that you could see what the web delivery versus regular U.S. Postal. We could send that out to the board members every other day. So you got it
That would be great.
Friday morning. We'll send it again to you tomorrow morning or Wednesday, and then we could do it Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
This is David. That would be great. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay. Our directive. Okay, going on to the State Board of Elections, Mr. President. The directive from the State Board is to continue to plan for the April 28th election, voting to begin with early voting on April 16 to the 23rd, and the election day on April 28th. We are continuing to recruit and train election judges until we're told otherwise. And when we get into the presidential primary election, I will discuss what's going on with regards to all of that. So, Mr. President, my report is finished for now.
Yeah, after Kevin's, this is Jim. After Kevin's report, we'll go into the primary preparation. Kevin, your report?
This is Kevin Karpinski. The only thing I have to report is that Mr. Ficker's petition with regard to tax limits, the petition was processed by the staff. He submitted more than 10,000 signatures as required by the Maryland Constitution for the question to be placed on the ballot. Mr. Ficker was notified of that fact on Friday, as was the county executive and the county council. The determination letter issued by Margaret was posted on our website on Friday. And the time period for judicial review for one to seek review in the circuit court for Montgomery County with regard to the board's verification and determination, there is a 10-day window that began as of the date of the determination.
Hello?
So, does anyone have any questions about that?
Thank you, Kevin. This is Nahi.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, this is Jim. Margaret, you're going to talk about the upcoming primary election.
I'm going to try.
You're going to try.
All right. As of today, we still have identified that we would like to have approximately 3,100 election judges. To date, we've had 2,800 sign up and take the quiz. And of those 2,800 judges, 2,100 have been trained. But what is happening is, unfortunately, I did send you a graph of the election judges to date that are part of our pool of workers. And one of the things that you will see is that we have a healthy population that is over 60 years of age. It's a color graph that I sent to you. And also, we have our 16 to 19-year-olds, which are a wonderful almost 20%, but unfortunately, we are concerned about the possibility that those individuals in that age group may have parents that have a different attitude related to allowing their children to work in a polling place. That being said, since Thursday, we've had 42 individuals call and straight out say, no thank you. And then we had 54 individuals signed up for training on Friday and Saturday, and 18 were no-shows. Now, normally we expect for, maybe 4 to 6 individuals, but this is a much higher number. Obviously, the staff is trying to call these people to find out the reason why. But we are beginning to see the attrition with the election judges. The Silver Spring Civic Center, where we were supposed to have training all this week, closed. So we were required to go Saturday night after the last class and haul all of our equipment out of the facility because we do not have access to that facility any longer. There was an incident at the Silver Spring Civic Center, and I'm going to let, I think Allison sent an email to all of you. We're still waiting to hear from the attorney, the individual that was the secondary third, go ahead.
So what Margaret's referring to is...
Allison McLaughlin is speaking.
Yes, Allison McLaughlin, the Deputy Election Director. What Margaret's referring to is that we did have a situation in a training class where one of the people participating in the class, one of our election judges, found out while they were sitting in the class that their family member, who did not live with them but who they had seen, had been exposed to someone who was diagnosed with the coronavirus. And so the class immediately responded to that. They did finish the class. That individual left, another student left, one of the trainers left. The rest of the team, a lighter team, finished up and they cleaned everything thoroughly. We canceled training classes the next day while they had everything cleaned. And the trainers who were in that class have not yet returned to the training schedule. We are still awaiting clearance from the county on medical return to work. although it is our understanding at this point that others in the chain of exposure have already returned to work, and that no one is ill.
Margaret, Jim,
Yes.
regarding the virus, are we hearing from any of our precincts about them not wanting to be
That's
precincts?
coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right. We also, because we train the Future Vote students in large classes of well over 300 to 700, those classes have been canceled, and there will be no Future Vote program for the primary election. Additionally, our outreach was canceled because some of them were gatherings that were of population 150 or more, and then the big last blast of outreach was at the libraries, and of course all the libraries closed. So outreach for all extents and purposes except for what's going on electronically, social media, Facebook, Twitter, our media releases is limited to that. Additionally, since we have been directed to continue to plan for an election, we are continuing to have election judge training classes, which are going on only in this building, and we have had a pretty extensive clean the equipment protocol after every class, but we've doubled down on that. I sent in your packet a request to approve the verification plan for the equipment that's going out. It's a 3-page document. It's the same way we've done it in the past. We don't follow the state protocol because there are 3 layers of verification that occur before the board gets there. And I'm asking the board to approve the Montgomery County verification plan, which basically requires that the supervisor do the initial 100% verification. Then we come through and the lead for that section would do a 10% verification. Then I or Allison come down and do another 10% verification. And then the board would come in and verify one early voting site verification, and then you also come in the Thursday before the election, whenever that may be, and do the various bag verification.
Margaret, Jim, is this the same protocol we've used in the past,
Yes.
the last election?
Yes, this is the same verification plan that we've used for several elections now.
Is there a motion to approve?
Anyone other than me?
I'm sorry?
This is Jackie. Can I ask a question?
Wow.
Who's talking?
This is David. I'm having a hard time getting everybody. It sounds like you're underwater.
This is Diane. I was just going to ask if everyone else is having the same liberation. I can hardly understand the words. Can you guys giggle whatever you're talking into?
I have the same problems also. The hard time hearing it mixed up.
Jackie.
Unfortunately, I'm having the same problem, and not just when people are talking who are at the board, with anyone who's talking.
You all sound like you're underwater to us too. We're trying to figure out if we can do an equipment swap or something to address that.
One moment.
Allison.
Uh-oh. Did we all dial in?
Mr. President, could we have like a 5-minute recess to do an equipment check here?
Yes.
Do you want us all to call back in 5 minutes, or hold on?
Could you hold on, please? Unless somebody's on a cell phone that's burning up, whatever. Which one is these? Okay, it's on here.
I don't know if this will work, but additional speakers.
This
on
is
mute.
Alice Soon. Can you hear us better now? This is Alice Soon.
Oh.
A problem.
You have the same problem?
Yes. Yes.
What do you want to do?
I don't know what we can do. Do you want to hang up and call back?
Can all of you
Want me to set it up?
call back?
Or we can have them call this phone, is what you're saying?
One moment.
We can do that.
One moment. What do you want to do?
I think they're saying call this phone number.
Call back.
Or call.
Okay.
Call in.
Thank you.
So call back. So we'll have them call back.
1 minute. We're trying to swap out phones. Let me have. Give me 5 more minutes, please.
That takes multiple lines in?
If I don't get a busy signal.
Yeah.
Do you need more line?
I think we're good. Thank you, Chris.
Welcome. This service is provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or
It still
hash
sounds the
sign.
same.
Yeah.
It's the free conference call.
Please
Re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. This is Diane, and the operator was distorted also just now. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash.
Followed by the pound.
If you do
or
not
hash.
know your PIN, please enter pound or hash.
Why is it picking up over there?
Please re-enter your access code followed by
Thank
the
you.
pound or hash sign.
anybody.
Doubled up.
I'm not on the call yet.
You exceeded number of attempts.
the same problem.
Please contact customer service if you need it.
Anything else? This is Dolly Kilby.
Welcome.
You do it over here so it doesn't.
Provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please enter your access code followed by the or hash sign. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or
Not
hash
even
sign.
taking my access code.
Are you using the host code or just the regular access code?
It's asking for the access code, so I'm entering the
Re-enter
access
your
code.
access code followed by the pound or hash sign. Please re-enter your access code followed by the
Should we have them redial in?
I'm gonna hang up and call back.
Your input is invalid.
Jim, are you back on?
Yeah, wait, Margaret's got something.
One. Lisa, can we just have them call back in?
You can try, but I'm trying to call in and I can't even get in.
Hi everyone. I think what we're going to try to do here is have you try calling in again. All right? So give me 1 minute to disconnect and get this all try to work, please. Pardon?
All right, have them hang up and call.
Hang up and call again.
You got him, Lisa?
So we all hang up.
Okay,
Just
I
30
hung up.
seconds. Just wait 30 seconds and call back. Okay.
Okay, so now what?
Now hopefully they'll call on this one. And we won't use that.
But how am I gonna hear without the mics?
On speaker.
Speaker's pretty loud on that, Margaret.
Not that loud.
Why don't we put the speaker right? You move right in front of the speaker, Margaret.
Mark. You can keep it over.
Hi, Dolly. It's the same stuff.
We have Dolly and Nahid. Anyone else?
Bernadette Garrett.
Bernadette Garrett.
Jackie Phillips.
That sounds a little better.
Diane Dillon.
That sounds a little better. Doesn't it?
This is David.
David Young or David
Karen
Lehman?
Berry.
I'm sorry.
Karen Bird.
Karen Bird. You don't have a quorum.
Here we go.
Billy Barnes.
You got a quorum.
Who are we waiting for?
Missing.
You're missing Alan.
Alan? We have everybody but Alan?
Yes.
So we can start, Mark?
Yes.
Okay, I think we have everybody on but Alan. We're just waiting for Alan, but
Hello, Alan?
Alan.
all right, good, Alan. All right, hopefully it's a little clearer. You guys are sounding clearer on our end. We left off with Margaret asking for the board to approve a motion to accept the verification plan
Voting supplies.
of the voting supplies, which we've used in the past elections.
This is Jackie, and I made that motion.
Okay. Nahid, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So I think everybody voted but Alan?
I didn't vote because I'm just trying to see where it is. If David is there, he votes, I can't.
Oh, Alan's on, okay.
I would just like to know the plan that we are approving. I think Margaret said she sent it to us. I don't doubt that. I'm just trying to find it.
Yeah, voting supplies verification plan.
It was the same
I'm working with
verification plan discussed at the last month's meeting.
It's the same verification plan that was discussed at last month's meeting.
Okay, I'm for it then.
I think it's unanimous then, that passes. Okay, Margaret.
All right, so the other thing is that logic and accuracy for early voting is taking place as we speak. All of the ballots have been delivered for early voting and election day for April 16th and April 28th. The following polling places have requested to be removed as a polling place. Riderwood 0504. The alternate for that location is Galway Elementary School. And we just heard right before the meeting from Arcola Tower. And I don't have the precinct number.
1354.
13, no, not 54.
That's usual.
That's usual.
No.
Arcola Tower, it's
It's
in
57.
13,
Cola Towers
57.
is 1357.
Yes.
1357. Asbury has called and is been very patient with me, waiting for the governor to make a decision, but they are not interested in having a polling place on site. Chris and I have not had an opportunity to talk to the director there. Margaret Schweinhart Senior Center is closed. We do not know if that's opening. Right now, that is precinct 1319. The alternate for that location is Blair High School, and that's what the staff will recommend. And then Holiday Park Senior Center. Again, this is a senior center. It is closed except for meals over the lunch hour. And the alternate for that is the Wheaton Library Community Center. And so that would be our recommendation to go there. Yeah.
And
Chris.
Since you and I,
Chris, would you come forward?
Chris Zizit, Operations Manager, Margaret and I spoke about an hour ago, and I had alerted her to our Cola Towers. Since that conversation, we have word from Shady Grove Conference Center that they're backing out on events as well.
Have we heard, Jim, have we heard from Leisure World?
No, nothing.
So do you want us to take that action today,
I
Margaret?
have a question.
Yes.
This is David. There's a fair distance from Holiday Park Senior Center to Wheaton Library. It's about 2 miles. Was any thought given to anything that might be closer?
We can review. We can review a few other locations, possibly Einstein or Newport. I need to look at the boundaries on those.
It would have to be the same ballot style.
Right, and I guess my question is, I don't know whether we're using already and I don't know if it's a different ballot style for Veers Mill Elementary or Rockview Elementary.
We're using both of
Those
them.
are on
We are using both of those locations as polling places already, and considering that they're elementary schools, we try to stay away from that.
Sure. It's just, actually the distance from, Holiday Park to Newport Mill is going to be, less than the library.
We can review the ballot styles and see if there's an arrangement we can make.
Are all those locations already polling places?
Not Wheaton.
Newport Mill and Einstein?
Newport Mill and Einstein are not polling locations.
Yeah, there's Wheaton.
So why is it ballot style issue there?
I don't know. I would have to look it up right now. If you give me a few minutes, I can look up the ballot style.
No, first, Alan here. Alan here. Where did the Einstein polling place go?
They were never a polling place in recent past.
So why is it, when we say we're looking up the ballot style, what does that mean? What is it we're trying to find out if it's not already a polling place?
What we have to do in the preparation for emergencies is we work with public safety to develop a list of locations to serve as an alternate site in which, generally speaking, we would have to move an individual precinct to another location. The location that is for Holiday Park Senior Center is right now the Wheaton Library Community Center. If you want us to look at another location, we still have time.
Margaret, Jim, what's our deadline with this?
That would depend on the governor.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
We have a plan in which every polling place is assigned an alternative voting station. Generally speaking, we're talking about situations that there's a fire, there's a violent act of some sort, in which we would work with a host of county agencies. This is definitely not one of those types of alternative emergency plans. We certainly can look at an alternative site other than the Wheaton Library Community Center, and we can get back to you about that. But we're not going to know much of anything until after tomorrow.
No, understood. We have to wait and see if we're even going to do it at all. And whatever else the governor says. Understood. But while you're at it, and I realize that in this situation is not our normal situation, but my question about 1319, which is the Schweinhaus Center, that we're requiring people to cross Colville Road to get to Blair High School. So I would just want us to at least see if there are any walking distance alternatives.
We will look into that.
Thank you.
Okay, Margaret.
Okay, then also in your packet was the early voting electioneering boundaries for the Wheaton Early Voting Center. That was sent out with my election director status report on Friday night.
Alan's here. It looks fine to me.
Do we need action on that by the board, Margaret?
Well, normally the board does approve the electioneering boundaries for early voting.
Okay. Yeah, Margaret says we have to, Jim, we have to
I have
take...
a question about it.
Yes.
I'm sorry. This is David. It looks fine to me on the side that you have it. What do you, if anything, do you propose to do for the other entrance, the Georgia Avenue entrance?
Chris, will you answer that question for him?
This is Chris Zezit. We have designated early voting, no electioneering on what is considered the Georgia Avenue entrance. That is an entrance that potentially could serve walkers or someone coming from the bus stop. We don't anticipate that we will have much voter traffic through that entrance. We have no electioneering boundaries marked for there, 25 feet off the door. I will say that congregating a lot of people on the outside of that boundary will be difficult. And when I was out there measuring, my back was to Georgia Avenue. I don't think it is the safest location to have people congregating to campaign.
How far is it from the road?
I would say it's about another 25 feet to the curb of Georgia Avenue.
Do we have to have two entrances?
Who's that? Diane?
This is Diane. Do we have to have two entrances? Would it be safer to just have one?
I think that the facility has those entrances, and I don't know that, I mean, we would have to have a legal reason to prohibit people from electioneering there that I'm not sure that we have.
And for purposes of the record, that was David.
The vast majority of electioneers and the vast majority of voters are going to come from the other side. But I'm not sure that we can just tell people that they can't electioneer next to, where there's an entrance where, like Chris said, voters could come on foot, they could come from the bus, they could walk from the metro.
Well, that was Mr. Naaman, who is speaking, for whoever gets the pleasure of transcribing this meeting. And this is Kevin Karpinski, and I would concur that you cannot close off one of those exits. We have to have 25 feet as the minimum, and I'm looking at a picture that Chris has prepared on the Georgia Avenue side, and it is at 25 feet.
I'm sorry, when you say it is at 25 feet, this is David again, what is at 25 feet?
The no electioneering signs are 25 feet from the front door of the entrance on Georgia Avenue. This is Kevin Karpinski.
Is that something that we have?
No, you do not have it. I'm sorry. We can send it to you. We
If
can
you could.
Carol.
I mean, in principle, I'm fine with that, but
scan it and send it to the board
Why don't you
members.
send them
Well,
both?
they're not,
it would be great to
Why don't
see.
you send them, so they see that there are two?
We are scanning it and sending it to the board members as we speak.
Thank you.
All right. Aside from that, do we have a preliminary approval of the electioneering boundaries for the Wheaton Early Voting Center?
I move. This is, 1 second, Jackie. Okay, I hate to do this. This is Diane, but let me just ask a question for clarification. This is my first election cycle on the board. Excuse me. So have we determined that electioneering outside that entrance, because anything from the road to the entrance is within the 25 feet perimeter, electioneering will be prohibited, correct?
Within the 25 feet, it will be prohibited from the two entrances. That is correct.
This is Alice Soon. Let me just describe the pictures that you're being sent. I think that will help clarify. There are two pictures. They are each pictures of the two entrance doors to the Wheaton Library and Community Rec Center. Both pictures show the doors on either side. Both pictures show a no electioneering boundary of approximately 25 feet, of 25 feet measured. What Chris, and what you can see from the picture, and Chris was indicating earlier, is that when she was measuring the 25-foot no electioneering zone, she estimated that it was approximately another 25 feet behind her to the road. So for a total of perhaps about 50 feet in between the door and the road.
This is Diane. Thank you for the clarification.
any other discussion?
David, as I understand it, this is David. As I understand it, there is a walkway that takes voters next to the building at that entrance, the Georgia Avenue entrance. So it's not just that the street is in front of it, but I believe that there is a sidewalk on that side of the building. Is that correct?
Yes, there is.
So it is possible to have a 25-foot boundary that would be somewhere along that sidewalk that would not be in the street.
Yes.
That's in the picture,
Okay.
Jim.
Well, I don't want to vote on this until I see the picture myself.
That's fine. We can lay it over till next month.
So I thought that you all were sending it now.
We are sending it to you to try to prepare the election early voting packet. But if you don't want to approve it at this time, we just sent it to you. If you can look at it and decide if you accept it, otherwise we'll lay it over to next month.
Right. I'm not objecting. I'm fine with looking at it now. That's great.
Okay, did you already send it, or are you planning to send it? Because
She's sending it right now.
Yeah,
Okay, so we're going to move on with the meeting, and you can look at it and we'll come back to it. All right, the next topic is the COVID-19 preparations. So again, I sent you a packet approximately, I don't know, around 11 o'clock. The plan for conducting the April 28th presidential primary election. As of today, there's still no emergency declaration, and therefore we are continuing to plan the election for April 28th. We are providing hand sanitizers and Clorox wipes throughout this building, and posters are all over the building to remind staff to wash their hands frequently. Workstations have been rearranged to ensure 3 to 6 feet of social distancing in all areas of the building. The Office of Human Resources has directed at-risk employees to self-identify and apply for telework or liberal use of leave as needed. And supervisors and senior professional staff have been designated as essential personnel. We are basically in the process of, as I said earlier, we canceled our outreach events, we've canceled Future Vote. We are currently, there's no one that has full-time or part-time telework. We're trying to test the laptops that we do have for VPN access. The thing about VPN access is it has to go through 2 tiers. It has to go through the county system as well as the state system to get access to MD voters, which is where we are looking at in terms of processing voter registration applications as well as absentee. I asked the state board at least 10 days ago what the process is that we need to follow in terms of being permitted to do VPN access from employees' homes to telework, and they were going to go to the Maryland Department of Technology Services and get back to me. Part of the protocol will be for, as it's been explained to me very broadly, is that the equipment that is assigned will have to be certified, for lack of a better word, to be able to use the VPN access into MD voters. The deadlines that we're looking at is April 7 remains the voter registration and party affiliation deadline. April 9th, we have to do the notice of election. April 13th is the deadline for us to complete early voting. Complete the logic and accuracy testing. Early voting begins on April 16th. We need to start moving the equipment in on April 14th and set it all up. And then April 28th is election day. We have a sample ballot that is ready to be printed. We are supposed to get the proof this Thursday to the printer, and we need to begin printing it on Saturday. That is when we have the presses held for that, and I'm going to let Allison address the sample ballot.
Well, we really are just on hold on the sample ballot until we hear what the governor's announcement is going to be, hopefully tomorrow. I mean, at this point, we have incorporated edits that were provided by the board. I just got the layout this morning, and I have not yet taken a look at that. But we are going certainly to take a look at that in between now and Thursday, when we are planning to send it to print and increase the prominence of the absentee ballot request options. But really, we're kind of waiting to see where the governor goes so that we know how to respond. At this point, we are prepared to go to press, and the vendor is prepared to go to press this weekend.
The other thing is that we don't have an alternate date available if the election is held on April 28th to print at this time where the sample ballot is printed. As you can imagine, both Montgomery County and Prince George's use the same printer. And so you're talking a fairly large print job. Prince George's printed theirs last weekend.
Prince George's is already printed, and so theirs is going to, if information in it changes, then that'll need to be reprinted. I am not certain. I know a number of other jurisdictions, other counties have been able to hold, so we're all just kind of waiting to hear.
And we're actually trying to wait as long as we can because we would like, obviously, to hear from the governor. We would also like to see what happens in the Tuesday elections and what the impact of this is in voter turnout. The Center for Disease Control issued guidance last night, again recommending that gatherings of 50 or more people be suspended for the next 8 weeks. As you may have heard, the governor closed down all of the restaurants and bars later today, and most of our polling places and early voting sites certainly have more than 50 individuals coming through in that. So in that same time period, we have a significant number of people that could potentially be exposed. The lowest voter turnout in recent memory was the 2012 presidential primary, and we had 76,000 thereabouts cast their ballot on election day and 10,000 in early voting during the 8 days of early voting. We believe that, again, that the early vote, that the vote by mail option is the best option. The board staff has begun aggressively marketing themes such as avoid crowds, vote at home, linking voters to the absentee ballot request that updates registration or registers the vote with the absentee application. Our public information officers began to really push out the text BBM, vote by mail, to request an absentee. This option includes a variety of materials to develop the 3 choices on how to vote. Our primary emphasis in social media is to vote by mail as a means to create social distance and to reduce the public health risk of a mass gathering at early voting and polling places. As I mentioned before, the future vote's been canceled. What we've done right now, since we're still having to go and spend the money on the trainers and to have election judges come in to be trained, we've reduced our class size from 24 to 16, which means that if we do have the election, we're going to have more classes, therefore more trainers, working probably overtime. So we have 16 election judges in the classroom. Many of the hands-on activities have been replaced with trainer demonstrations to avoid the multiple hands touching the equipment and materials. The good news is that it eliminates the personal contact and the transfer. The bad news is the actual experience of touching the equipment and setting it up, which seems to be challenging, that is lost. After each class, the trainers are wiping down every surface, including the chairs, tables, voting equipment, and touchscreens of the poll books. Confirmation notices to all election judges received prior to their training states if you become ill for any reason, regardless of whether you're exposed to COVID-19, do not attend your class. Election workers who are exhibiting symptoms will be denied entry. Follow the instructions to reschedule your class. Have you traveled outside of the country within the last 14 days? Believe that you may have been exposed to COVID-19. Have flu-like symptoms such as runny nose, headache, cough, sore throat, and fever. These, for the most part, are becoming very, very general questions. Management is also reviewing an option to do purchase, rent, lease, online training software to communicate last-minute information or supplemental training to the election judges. While I have, this was brought to me yesterday afternoon, I think. I haven't had an opportunity to see this online training and the extensive piece of it. We do have a lot of video training on, but we're looking at it as an option. Early voting, the board is working.
Margaret, before you go on,
Yes.
Margaret, this is David. For the message to the election judges prior to their training classes,
Yes.
it has those 3 factors. Does it indicate whether you need to have all of them or only one of them, or does it just list it the way that it was listed in your email?
It is, this is Alisoon. It is listed the way that it is in the email. I'm reading it right now and trying to see if do you feel we need to make a clarification?
Yes, because I think right now it has 3 factors, but doesn't say whether you need to have all 3 or whether you only need to have 1. And obviously, if someone has flu-like symptoms, we don't want them at the polls even if they don't have COVID-19. And if someone believes they've been exposed to COVID-19, that's obviously an issue. Actually, it's not at the polls, it's at the training.
Okay.
I gather, I don't know what the CDC standard is now for traveling outside the country, no matter where you went, but it's certainly, something to think about. But in any event, I think we should tell people whether we're talking about any one of them or whether we're talking about all of them.
So David, this
I
is
think we're
Kevin.
talking about any one of them.
This is Kevin Karpinski. We'll modify to say, follow the instructions to reschedule your class if you have any one of the following, and then the 3 things that are
Okay.
listed.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, regarding early voting and election day, board staff is working with every polling place to ensure that the bathrooms are available and well stocked with soap and paper towels. Signage will be posted at every polling place urging voters to make sure that their hands are clean and dried before entering the voting room, to avoid touching their face prior to washing their hands again, and to make sure that their hands are dry before handling the voter authority card or the ballot. Additionally, if we're going to include in the sample ballot a recommendation that the voters can bring their own black ink pen to the polls, but pens will be provided and they will be wiped down periodically with Lysol and paper towels. Election judges will be assigned their own pens for their exclusive use and will be directed to use only the stylus, not fingers, on the screens of the poll book. A sufficient number of gloves have been ordered in multiple sizes that have been to be provided to use by all election judges. Election judges will also be provided pencils with erasers to bring up the correct ballot style for voters on the ballot marking device to avoid touching the screen with their fingers. Election judges will also be provided lint-free cloths and alcohol wipes as recommended by the manufacturer to wipe down the touch screens of the ballot marking devices, the electronic poll books, and the scanners periodically. County and city facilities all have, and early voting sites will have hand sanitizer available. Right now, the board is not able to acquire sufficient hand sanitizer to provide to all voters on election day. But we do have enough sanitizer for the election judges during the day. So I have it for election judges, but I only have an 8-ounce bottle. So voters are just going to have to go to the bathroom and wash their hands with soap and water. I do not have at this time, and the state board is trying to get additional hand sanitizer for across the state. But if they're expecting to have hand sanitizer at the polling place, that will not be happening in Montgomery County because we don't have access to it. Chief judges will also be instructed to ask any election judge the day before the election, or whichever day they show up, if they feel ill, and if they do, they're going to send them home. and to make sure that there's 3 to 6 feet of social distancing between the election judges and voters at all times. The canvas will be moved to the warehouse where the hand count was conducted in 2018. We are going to try to achieve as much social distance between the teams of workers as well as the observers. And again, the canvassers will be asked whether they're feeling ill, and if they are, they'll be sent home. The Center for Disease Control has officially indicated no additional precautions are recommended for storage and handling of ballots. Lysol and other disinfectants are not suitable for use. However, gloves available to personnel handling ballots are good. Staff is also looking into subjecting the incoming mail to ultraviolet lights.
Margaret, Jim, I just want to, in terms of the canvas, if it's a mail-in vote,
I'm going to cover mail
okay,
next.
because you had talked about the length of it. and I think-
Before you get to mail-in vote, would it be possible for me to ask a couple things?
You bet.
This is David. First of all, a comment, which is that I think you've done an amazing job of covering all these different issues surrounding having the election under these circumstances. So great credit to all of you for thinking of all these different things. My question is about first the messaging about vote by mail. I like the idea of saying avoid crowds, vote at home. And I wonder are you planning to include that in the sample ballot as well as the other marketing that you've been doing?
There are staff here that are much better at wordsmithing than I am. There's some concern about the word using avoid crowds, that it might be too negative. Allison and Humberto are going to try to make it less, what they believe is less negative. But we are going to do some sort of messaging that in essence is avoid crowds, vote at home. You can vote at your office, you can vote on a wall. I don't care, just don't come to a polling place.
Right, and also, as I submitted in writing, anytime we make clear to people who are used to needing an excuse to vote at home that they don't need one, I think that helps as well. And then my last question is kind of how we deal with a problem that the state causes us that we don't really control, which is that the state's website for requesting absentee ballots for online delivery, I think it's actually, I guess you can use the website to request mail delivery as well. But their website, as we know, is kind of clunky and difficult to use and confusing because it's also used for voter registration. And I realize that we probably can't get them to do anything about it, but I wonder if we can somehow make clear to people that if they have technical issues, that there's someone they can call in order to help them with that. Because I think a number of people may try to request their ballots on that website and may find out that they have issues of different kinds, such as if your date of birth is a single-digit number, you have to put a 0 in front of it or else won't recognize it, such as just the confusion that site causes. And like I said, I realize it's not our site, but I'm wondering if there's anything we can do that, even if it's just that people can call us for help if they get stuck.
Well, two things, David. Number one, you're right. We cannot change how the state board has labeled that. We will include the 800 number The state's position, and has been the position for a long time, is that the reason they phrase it the way they do is because this is their way of ensuring that the absentee ballot reflects where the person is registered to vote. Allison has something else she wants to add here.
No, I was just reminding Margaret that we have made arrangements for our incoming calls to go to the state's call center. And so calls that come to our main office will be answered by a state person who would be on the hook for explaining that to all the other voters that are calling in from elsewhere in the state.
Do we know whether they're able to explain that? Is there anything we can do to assist with that? Because the fact that they're responsible for it, while appropriate since it's their website, has me concerned as to whether what kind of information they're going to be providing.
Well, it is their website, and I don't think this is the first time that this particular issue has arisen. Even, I mean, with the State Board of Election and the marketing of voting by absentee in the past, we can certainly talk to the State Board and make sure that in their contract with their vendor that's answering these questions, that they make it really clear that this is the method that one uses to receive a absentee ballot if this is the manner in which the voter has to vote, that they have to make an affirmative action to request an absentee ballot.
Right. I mean, any kind of clarification they can do would be helpful. The other thing is that our absentee page, unless I'm missing it, does not include a link to that page.
It's right there at the drop down.
Application if you want to make a paper request and download it, fax it, or where you can email it. But I don't believe it has a link to how to request it online. Now, I realize if we put the link there, we're going, people may have trouble with that website, but on the other hand, it is an option that people have.
Well, David, the thing is that right under the banner, it says request absentee online.
This is Ella
Under
Soon.
the banner on the,
This is Ella Soon. It should be.
I'm sorry.
We will, Janet and I are looking at each other. We'll take a look and see if we can find the issue that you're referring to. If you can send an email to one of us, then we can, to see exactly where the issue is, we'll take a look. But yes, it should be, we will make sure it links through online.
Alan here. Alan here, I have a question. I'm assuming that if the decision is made for 100% vote by mail, we will use all of our public service announcements and communications budget to advertise that. But in the meantime, since newspapers and media are very active in passing on public service announcements from the federal government and state government and all, could we ask them also to start including vote by mail now as a good option?
They are doing that now.
Jackie. That's all right. Go ahead.
Good.
I was just going to tell you what we decided to do. That Dr. Z was going to call and get all of those vote by mail things that he could. And the committee worked on that, Lisa and I.
Good. I can see on Facebook, Allison and Roberto are on there all the time encouraging vote by mail.
Which is a good one, by the way. I mean, every day is there. This is not the Facebook advertisement is very good.
I assume that if we're going to do the votes, this is Jackie again, Margaret, if we're going to do, or Jim or Kevin, if we're going to, the governor says we're going to do the complete vote by mail, that we will need to get together again to talk about it when you decide how everything's going to be done, because I've got lots of questions about it.
So do we.
Are we
So
doing
Jackie,
that today,
this
or are
is
we going to wait to see what the governor says?
Well, Jackie, this is Kevin. So yes, it will depend upon ultimately what the governor decides, one, and then two, whether he then authorizes the state board to set forth regulations on how vote by mail would be handled, because it's really not a true absentee canvass, and in order to get election results out, there would have to be processing prior to the statutory imposed period for absentee ballots. So one of the things that both Margaret, Nikki, Margaret and I'm sure other staff members have pointed out to the state board would be that if indeed the decision is to vote by mail, that the staff be able to begin opening ballots by April 15th. And that would allow timely results to be processed on election day.
What happens to the absentee ballots that are coming in right now? Are they going to be?
Well, that's
Do they have to be redone?
That's one of the many legal questions that has to be addressed. Why don't you let me start with the vote by mail, and we'll do it section by section. For the last 3 days, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, the staff has been sifting through all of these various options, as well as Allison and I, Janet, have been talking to our fellow election directors as to how to proceed. Obviously, it's not a monolith, but basically, the directors across the state unanimously support vote by mail. And they do that because we believe that it poses the least threat to the health and safety of the community. By mailing every voter a ballot, it's consistent with the CDC recommendations. It reduces the person-to-person contact, promotes voting at home instead of in a public gathering. It doesn't endanger our neighbors and our election judges. It won't spread the disease any further. It mitigates the congestion and the long wait times. We've already been asked not to go to nursing homes, and we've lost 4 or 5 locations already because of this issue. It allows our employees to ensure their health and safety with possibility of setting up telework for processing registrations and those unique absentee processing issues. It allows us to save money by stopping election judge training and not exposing our trainers or the judges to those public gatherings. And we see the sample ballot to be used we would continue to mail it, but we would use it as a vehicle as part of educational documents, because this vote by mail would be unprecedented in the state of Maryland. Now, voting by mail does involve significant costs, where the ballots that we had delivered on Saturday won't be used. We'll use them for second issues here, walk-in traffic, that people, and just the unique things that happen during an election. All the ballots will have to be reprinted. What we are recommending is that with the ballots are going to be vote by mail, to distinguish the absentee ballots that have been already, we started mailing those last weekend, that we place those in some sort of unique identifier type of envelope. Different color would be nice. I'm not sure that the vendor has that, but something that it would make it distinguished from the absentee ballots that have been mailed out for the traditional April 28th election. We would have prepaid postage for the outgoing and return envelopes. The conduct of the post-election canvass, some of those costs could be deferred because we're reducing the number of election judges and the number of hours that trainers would have to go, because now we have to make the classes smaller. We have to have more frequent classes because the classes are smaller. We would seek legal guidance from our attorney, who I assume is going to reach out to the state board as well as the Attorney General's office on how the absentee ballots that have been mailed and voted upon, how those will be treated. We're going to need clarification on the process of opening the returning ballots and how that would, we need some changes in the electionware database to acknowledge for the mail ballot as opposed to absentee ballot. And Janet Ross is leading up that discussion, and there's a lot of questions that are being asked. And the biggest thing is that the election results are going to take much longer. It's going to take a long time to open up however many ballots we receive in return. Each one of them will have to be opened up, flattened out, and then processed. Janet has certain specific requirements with regards to how those 850s are going to work in order to work. Imagining the best case, let's say everybody's excited about voting and it's a primary election, we would expect, the highest number we would expect would be about 352,000 ballots returning, and all the Democratic ballots right now are a 2-page ballot, so that's a lot of paper that would have to be processed. But as I mentioned earlier, in the 2012 primary, we only had 100,000 people voting. So, I mean, you're still talking a lot of paper, but the time difference would be substantial. One of the questions that we have is, are all the Board of Canvassers needed to be here if we're not going to, we're just going to open the ballots, flatten them out, run them through the scanner, but no results will be posted until April 28th or whatever day the governor declares as the election. We also think that if we do go by mail, we would not be able to have results and certification. We would expect that it would take 30 days minimum to open all of the return mail. Basically, the big concern, as always, is money. There'll be inactive voters that will face some confusion. There may be some extra work here to do the second issues. The legal issue of the Board of Canvassers, that would be the big issues. Moving the election to another date, nothing really changes there. We still have the same high risk. We still have the need for the Democrats to certify their election so that they can attend their national convention in July. We'll have to start all over again recruiting election judges and election workers, as well as confirming early voting locations and election day polling places. None of these are guaranteed. The voting equipment will need to be completely redone, incurring significant overtime costs. There's a question that nobody seems to know the answer to as to whether the ballots will have to be completely reprinted, or will the software be programmed to accept the ballots that we just had delivered on Saturday? And then, is there potential impact to the candidates?
Did everybody hear Margaret pretty well? It's Jim.
Most of this is covered in the document that I sent in earlier, like about 11 o'clock, once I found out we were doing this by phone.
Margaret, did I have to press *6 to get back in to talk?
Yes.
Is everybody hearing what Margaret was saying?
This is David. I was able to hear it. I wouldn't say well, but I was able to understand it.
Okay.
Me too.
All right. I had a couple of questions for Margaret. It's Jim. Margaret, how many ballots, if we're mail-in only, will we have to send out? How many ballots will we be mailing?
This is Diane.
Roughly.
700,000.
700,000? We had spoken earlier before the meeting. You estimated to me that our canvas could take up to 60 days. Is that correct?
Worst case scenario.
Does that require the board members to be available for 60 days, Kevin?
It depends upon how the state handles it. It depends upon whether they're going to require a quorum of the board or whether they're going to allow staff to process the vote by mail ballots.
So it's
In other words, if they treat it as akin to an absentee canvass, yes. If they don't, and they say the staff can continue to go ahead and process the ballots starting April 15th or 16th and then move forward, then no.
So it's possible the board may have to be available for 2 months.
Yes.
Now, in terms of public safety and health, if we have a canvass that goes a month or longer, and what do we have, 100 canvassers, maybe?
Yeah.
80 canvassers, whatever.
60.
All right, let's say we have 60 canvassers for a month. How do we keep them each 6 feet apart and protect their health and safety?
You're going to be set up in the warehouse like you were for the recount.
Okay. Because a canvas alone presents health issues, just in terms of us being here every day.
But it reduces the number of people that are exposed. Instead of hundreds of thousands of individuals congregating at 11 early voting sites and 232 precinct voting locations, we're now reducing that number of people for exposure. It's not a perfect world.
So the at-risk exposure would be to the board and our staff and our canvassers.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Margaret. Is there any other questions about the possibilities, the different directions the governor could go? No. Thank you, Margaret. As David said, very, very well prepared. And I don't know if anybody said it, but thank you and the staff because you're working under very difficult situations. And believe me, we all appreciate you and the staff.
Thank
Okay.
So why don't we close the loop on, this is Kevin Karpinski, let's close the loop on this no electioneering zone issue. I have texted to each board member a picture of the no electioneering boundaries, so you should have a text to that effect, and I have on my phone an email showing the no electioneering. Margaret, you wanted a motion on this? Okay, is there a motion to accept the no electioneering as proposed by the staff?
Yeah, this is not it. I printed it and I don't see any problem because we don't have a choice. We cannot close the entrance door, as Kevin said.
So is that a motion,
So I
Naheed?
move that we approve it. I will you move, Mrs. Diane. You move.
Naheed made a motion. Is there a second?
Diane did.
Okay, I second it.
Diane. Any discussion on this? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
This is Diane. Can I ask a question going to the vote by mail, please?
Sure, just keep your voice up, Diane.
But it sounds like I may have missed the beginning of the discussion. I have a basic question about who will be receiving a ballot if it goes to vote by mail, or do we have this discussion later?
Who would receive the ballot? Every registered
Right.
voter in the state.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay, Margaret, we go to our action items now?
Yeah, the comparison of the equipment and election judges was sent in the Friday packet. And the website issues, I just ran out of time, David. The other part of that is we did start working on the website. We started with some ADA issues that were brought to us and that we're trying to fix first. And David, I just haven't gone through all of the previous board meetings because I had my hands full with this.
Well, action item B, this is Jim. Elise raised that issue. Elise, did you get the information that you wanted, or do you have any other questions?
Yes, I did, and I just had a question regarding or a couple of questions. One regarding the election judges allocated versus work. I'm sure there's always some attrition in terms of the number allocated versus those who show up. So it seems that it might be an apples to oranges comparison in some ways, because work does not correlate with allocated, I assume, because some people just don't show up.
At least the comparison chart for 2018 shows those individuals that worked. The number of individuals that are assigned for the primary of this year is assigned because I don't know how many people, are going to work. And quite honestly, under these circumstances, if we have an election on April 16th through the 23rd at early voting sites, as well as Election Day on April 28th, I will be happy if 50% of the election judges show up. But right now, you're right. It is apples and oranges because 18 shows how many worked, and 20 shows how many have been assigned that the recruiters are expected to recruit to serve at those locations.
Right, okay.
If I may, this is
And
Ellen.
can you tell me, I'm sorry, this is Elise again. Can you tell me how you made these allocations? So like I'm looking at, say, Riderwood, which had 90-minute wait time.
Riderwood is the situation at Riderwood was that all of the poll books went down because of an electrical issue. As soon as we got our tech there, the line started moving. There is no need to bring more equipment in there or more equipment because there is there's no value. The value is to get competent people in there to prevent those poll books from going down in the first place. And we had less than 900 people vote there.
Okay. So again, or for example, College Garden versus, say, Garrett Park.
What about it?
Okay, so College Garden, and I'm having a little bit of trouble because my second page is upside down, so I'm trying to read one on my phone and one on the other, but actually I think these two are on the same page. College Garden had a 90-minute wait versus Tilden that had a 60-minute wait. But there's 3 more scanners at Tilden, whereas College Garden is 1. So how are you making the determination?
Well, part of the determination is based on the MIT wait time parameter, but Janet's here.
Hi, Lisa, it's Janet Ross. If you look at the bottom, it tells you...
Janet.
Hi, you look at the bottom, it tells you Tilden is now combined. It's 2 very large precincts combined for 2020. It wasn't for 18. They were in separate rooms. That's why it's more equipment there. It's a larger population going to be voting.
I'm sorry, this is David. I thought that Tilden had a precinct in the cafeteria and a precinct in the gym, both for 18 and for 20.
No, 20, they're in the same room. They're consolidated.
They're in the same room.
Oh, I see. They're in the same room in 20.
Yes. That's why it's more equipment for 20.
So does that mean that, well, okay, then help me out. What was the other precinct other than 410?
418.
So it's 418, 418 is not on this list at all.
And 410 was only on the list because one of their scanners was broken, I say 85% of the day, because one of my people was there all day long trying to fix it. That's why Tilden had to wait.
No, I remember I was there for a portion of the day.
Yeah, and that was their problem. They had a broken scanner most of the day.
So it sounds like really to do a comparison for Tilden, though, we would need to look at what we did at 418 plus 410 and then compare it to 410 for 2020.
No, you have to compare it to a consolidated precinct, such as Bethesda Chevy Chase High School.
So Bethesda Chevy Chase High School looks like you have added additional poll books and ballot marking devices. I guess I'm confused. I'm confused by this chart then.
The question that was posed to us was what was the difference between 2018 and 2020?
Right. And the difference was that 2020 there's a consolidated precinct at Tilden, and 2018 there was not.
Correct.
Okay, so can you get the information about what the 2018 allocation was for the other Tilden precincts
Yes.
Yes,
and what their wait time was?
sure.
And I gather that is the 2018 allocation, is that based on the general election in 2018?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other? Before we lose the phone?
Well, on the action items, what did Alan suggest, do we announce and put on our agenda next month the action items that we've decided on today? I forget.
They're not going to be on the agenda now.
Okay.
They'll be addressed
You mean on the minutes?
the following. Right, they'll be on the minutes.
Right, okay, I got it. All right, in terms of David, the inquiry on the website, Margaret, do we have a time frame for when we can get that out?
As quickly as we can when we're managing all the other issues.
Okay.
I've been taking notes of the action items. Do you want me to run down what they were?
Would you please?
Sure. The first one was that Margaret committed to sending you the information on what our needs are to fully fund election judge stipends and the training and recruiting personnel, and what we have in the budget for the upcoming year, so we can provide that information. The second is that we committed to providing you all with a number.
To that, can we get a date for that? It would be helpful to have that information.
By Friday.
on
By
Tuesday,
Friday.
Thursday.
We'll get it to you by Friday, if not earlier.
By Friday, okay. The second was that
Great, thank you.
The second was that Margaret committed to sending you the number of absentee ballots requested every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The third is that we are going to rephrase the confirmation letter for election judges so that it no longer, so that it says that they should reschedule if you have any one of the following. The next is that we will make sure that the sample ballot includes the phone number for people to call if they have problems requesting an absentee ballot. The next is that Janet and I are going to take a look at the website and find the place where there appears to not be a link to the state's absentee ballot request site, although David, if you can...
He always sent it to me.
Oh, Janet says she's already received that email, so she's already on that action item. And that is the last that I have, unless this last discussion item had a follow-up.
Well, he had asked about some information about teleworking.
Talk to us about alternative polling places if we are not able to use Holiday Park and Schweinhaus. If we wanted to see something that was closer to them than the one that Blair and the library.
Yes. Also, so Chris Eason is going to follow up and look into alternate polling places for Holiday Park.
Holiday Park and Schwein.
When can we get?
And Schweinhut.
We need to go out and inspect each of those locations, so it's gonna have to be coordination between this office and the school system.
Okay, can we get it in 2 weeks?
We can get it as soon as the school system cooperates with us, so I hope it's in 2 weeks.
Any other problems?
Well, hopefully, this is Jim, hopefully the governor's announcement will be made tomorrow, and we'll get that out to the board as soon as we hear. And our next meeting, unless we have an emergency or something to regroup, is April 20th. But we're all subject now to whatever the governor says. We may have to regroup.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that if we have a whole new method of voting, and if we have to do it on April 28th, that we may want to meet sooner than April 20th.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
So this is Jackie. I think we'll need an information meeting, if nothing else.
Maybe move it a week earlier?
Yeah, let's see what the governor says, and then, yes, it's a good suggestion to move it up. We can do that. And if we move it up to a date that someone has already got plans, we can have a call-in access as well. But that's a good suggestion. All right, that being the meeting, I just want to hope everybody stays safe and we can get through this. But be assured that Margaret and the staff are doing everything they can to keep all our voters safe and to make sure that everybody who wants to vote votes, and we count every vote. And I know that's the goal of the board and the staff, and we're going to do that. We're going to get through it together. All right, in any event, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Jackie said second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Be safe.